The Lakers are 1-4. They lost to the Jazz last night. They're now 0-4 against the Western Conference. They're giving up 99.8 points a game, and they're scoring exactly 100 points a game. Hence, they are only there when they do win, it's by 0.2. They are very average, even. I'm not sure how you want to say it, but in their 4 losses, they're losing by about 10 points a game. So, what do we think of this Lakers team? Eric, I'm going to start with you on this one. Me and Mike were going back and forth with the Chicago thing, so I'm going to pass it over to you on this one. The Lakers, are they in trouble, or is this strictly we're finding a rhythm together?
Exactly. You can't take a pretty much brand new team and just throw them on a court and expect them to instantly gel. It'll happen, but it's not going to happen immediately. It's just not. And people who think it's just going to magically happen immediately are mistaken. Plus, they're a little bit banged up. Nash injured. Howard injured. Kobe's been injured. The whole team's banged up already. So once these guys get a little healthier, get back to the way they know how to play, they'll be just fine. I don't think anybody sitting here right now or anybody else out there doesn't think the Lakers are a playoff team.
Fair enough. Mike?
I got to agree with everything he said. I mean, we knew this team was going to have to gel a little bit. I mean, the big question was whether or not Dwight Howard was going to be healthy. He has been, but when Steve Nash goes down in your second game of the season, that's supposed to be the guy expected to take on a big leadership role and really help with the gelling process of everything. And has anyone seen Antoine Jamison this season, by the way? Seems like he hasn't gotten involved in the offense at all.
I watched him miss a 3 in their game against the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing I saw Jamison do.
So, I mean, obviously, he's expected to carry a big scoring load for this team, too. So it just seems like there's a lot of things that still have to come together for the Lakers. They're still going to be a playoff team. They're still going deep in the playoffs this year. So, I mean, a 1-4 start, I mean, there's still 77 games left in the season. This is just a little bump in the road for him.
See, and that, I like how you said that, because I mean the one thing I hear people say all the time, especially during the baseball season, it's a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. They're not, it's not 1 week worth of games and then wherever you're at determines your entire year. This is a marathon, 82 game season. I look at this Lakers team, and the only thing I can say about them that hasn't probably already been said is strictly the fact is, think of Miami 2 years ago.
Well said.
When they were 20 games in and they were 9-11. And people were sitting there like, this team should be 2 games under 500. They shouldn't be losing to these teams. They shouldn't this. They shouldn't that. And you're sitting there and you're like, now me personally, I loved it. I do not like what they did in Miami. I am not a fan of these super teams. I don't like it. I'm just not a fan of them. Even though it's sort of been a part of history.
So what do you think?
NBA.
Every team should be regulated to 1 or 2 superstars? That's it?
No,
you can't let them play together?
I just don't like the idea of all these superstars saying, I'd rather play with you and win a championship than beat you and win a championship.
You're either with us or you're against us.
And I'd rather be against you.
And I would rather have a stronger army behind me. I mean...
But they're not an army. You got 3 generals.
I mean...
You can't... That doesn't work in the military. You got 3 generals.
Well, listen, I'll say it like this. You always have the teams that are able to put together more superstars than the other. What I didn't like about the way Miami did it is a couple things. It was just a level of cockiness and the belief that just because the 3 of us are together, all of a sudden the championship is ours. And I've hated Pat Riley since the way he left the Knicks back in '95. So I'm not a Pat Riley guy. And I was more pissed that he was the one able to say that he put it together than everything. But listen, it's the level of cockiness, the way that they felt that just because they all came together, the championship was already theirs. I think there's something to be said about the teams like the Celtics when they put together their big 3. They needed the role players, the Eddie Houses, the James Posies,
I'd
guys
say
like
Kendrick
that.
Perkins to me was one of the
Kendrick
best,
Perkins,
biggest
yes.
players on that team when they won that title,
Absolutely.
and nobody even gives him credit.
No, absolutely. He was a vital part, and that was also Rajon Rondo's rookie year.
Yeah.
You know, these were guys, it wasn't just the three of them. It was the role players who helped mold that team into what it was. And, you know, that's what separates the superstar teams from the great teams, in my eyes.
And you know what? And that's the thing, too, because I feel like it's unfair to sit there and be like, well, it's not fair that the three of them had, you know, that there's three superstars on one team. I mean, come on. Like, it really isn't fair to get on them. I mean, look, Jordan wouldn't have done it without Pippen. And then, you know, in the early 90s, it was Paxson. In the late 90s, it was Steve Kerr. In the early 90s, he had Horace Grant. In the late 90s, he had Dennis Rodman. Like, you need it. It's Michael Jordan may be considered by a lot as the greatest player ever, but you do need teammates.
You're forgetting somebody. How about my man Luke Longley?
Oh, stop it. I'd rather give credit to Tony Kukoc. I love that guy. He was a blast.
You didn't like Longley?
No.
Will
I did
Purdue,
not.
man.
I did not.
Will Purdue.
I remember when we brought in 42-year-old Bill Cartwright to play center for a year with us in the Jordan
The
era.
Knicks
Well,
got
actually,
40-year-old Kurt Thomas right now.
I will make a correction, actually. Bill Cartwright was on all three of the first championship teams. He was actually traded to the Bulls by the Knicks for Charles Oakley in Oakley's rookie season.
Okay.
Maybe not rookie season. I think second or third season, actually.
Oakley was awesome.
That's
Oakley
it. I was
was
going to
the
say,
man.
that's an interesting trade. I mean, you think
yeah.
back at it, you're like, well, I think Oakley would have been more helpful than when.
Well, I can tell you why. Originally, Cartwright was actually the center when Ewing was drafted. They tried to move Ewing to power forward, actually, but it didn't work out. They wanted to keep Ewing at center, and Oakley was just a better fit for the Knicks.
Okay.
That's
and
why they
look,
made the trade.
Oakley fit that Knicks team perfectly. So I had no, you know, things worked out the way they needed to work out. Let's be serious here. My Bulls won championships, so I was cool with it. But you know, either which way, like I don't want to sit here and be like, oh well, they cheated, because every great team in the history of the NBA had more than one superstar on it.
I mean, Magic Johnson was playing with
James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, you know, Larry Bird had Robert Parrish in his prime.
Had,
Dennis Johnson.
I had a lot of guys.
Kevin McHale,
Yeah.
Danny Ainge.
All right, you bad boys of Detroit. You can go on and on and on of all the teams that have won championships, and they all had guys.
Multiple Hall of Famers.
Yeah, multiple guys that ended up making the Hall of Fame. So it's not like you can be mad at Miami for that. I think for me, I'm very similar to a lot of people. I more disliked how they went about it than anything else. You know, the spectacle of LeBron making the decision. I'm like, shut up, dude.
Yeah, that's
you know, like
exactly
that
what
kind
I
of stuff. But like, you know, I just back to our original point of. I mean, this whole conversation started going back to the Lakers and trying to, you know, gel as a team. And really what I was trying to get at is you go back to that Miami team, you know, 2 years ago when they first got put together, and they're under 500, you know, a quarter of the way through the season. They're around 500, you know, halfway through the season. And then what do? But in the final half of the season, they win 80% of their games. They pull off the number 2 seed. And then when they face Chicago in the Eastern Conference Finals, they get dominated in Game 1, lose by 20, and then come out and win the next 4 in a row to go play Dallas. And yeah, they lost to Dallas, but they lost to Dallas that was filled with a bunch of gritty veterans that wanted a ring. A bunch of guys that have spent 9, 10 years in the NBA that were playing basketball in the NBA. You know, I mean, think about it like this. Jason Kidd lost in the NBA Finals when LeBron James was a junior in high school. You know what I mean? Like, so you're talking dealing with veterans that have been dealing with not winning a championship when you were still in high school. Yeah. And you were dealing with girl drama and where's my locker? You know what I mean? Like, that's what you were dealing with.
By the way, I don't think LeBron ever had girl drama.
He
was probably just like
don't even
to
try.
the next.
Every man in this world gets girl drama.
What is LeBron's biggest girl drama? Which girl am I going to move on to
How do you
next?
think he felt when he was 19 and the girl told him she was pregnant? That's not girl drama to you?
And I'm saying he does have
I mean,
kids.
come on, it's drama.
He does have kids now. So it's very possible.
I'm
he was
just
right.
saying, every guy in this world that deals with a girl deals with drama. It's just part of life. It's just how it is, especially if you're in a relationship.
I'm just saying,
I will
his
say
drama
this.
isn't like, yours or mine drama.
No.
The point to Eric, I'll give him this though. I mean, it's a lot easier to deal with girl drama when you're making $17 million a year.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
It really is. Go shopping. Here. Stop complaining.
Take the card. Leave
Go
me alone.
shopping. But, I look at this Lakers team, look, 1-4. Not that big of a deal. If they were, I think, to be honest with you, I think people would be making a bigger deal if they were 4-1. I think that would be more of an impressive thing. The only thing that bothers me is 0-4 against the Western Conference. You don't like to see that, especially the Clippers loss. That one bothered me because, look, the Clippers aren't your JV team anymore. All right? They are not the Lakers JV team. They're not the little brother that just sort of takes, whatever spotlight's left when the Lakers are done. They're a team that has, they expect to win an NBA championship. Now, do most people expect them to? No, but they expect to. So they're not going to go in and just be the Lakers' little brother and get beat up anymore. And I thought the Lakers knew that this year, and I expected them to take that game pretty seriously, and they didn't. I think they lost by 10 to the Clippers. So I was a little surprised by that, but I do agree with what you said, Eric. They are banged up. Nash gets hurt in, the second game?
Yeah.
So, they are banged up. Dwight's still getting his basketball legs under him. Let's keep in mind, he did miss the last month and a half of the NBA season last year. He's still...
I'm wondering how long is this back issue going to linger, and is it going to be a problem the rest of his career? Is this going to be every season, is he going to miss 20 games? From stiffness, from soreness, from whatever? Is he going to be a 62-game-a-year guy?
I hope for his sake and NBA fans' sake he's not. Because, let's be honest, Dwight Howard's fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, listen. All I will say is if it does wind up coming to that 60 games, of Dwight Howard is better than the majority of the league only playing 60 games. But
Oh yeah, absolutely.
listen, if the Lakers are able to start gelling together, the thing that the Lakers can hope for is that Mike Brown is able to manage his minutes, kind of the way that Mike Woodson has been managing the Knicks' minutes so far. He's done a good job not giving a lot of the veterans heavy minutes early on. If they could do something like that with Dwight over the first couple of months, I'm not saying limited him 20 minutes, but don't have him playing 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
If they got a decent cushion, 30 minutes, then you go to the bench a little bit. If they could do that, that would preserve him for March and April, the times that they really need him.
So pretty much keeping him under 35 minutes a game, or 32, 35 minutes under that is pretty much what you're looking for.
The best comparison I can make actually is what Popovich does to Tim Duncan nowadays.
Okay, yeah,
Something like
that's
that.
a fair comparison.
Something like that.
Now, TL puts it on chat room, and I will say I haven't had an opportunity, and I'm going to load it up now because I haven't had a real chance to look at it. But TL points out in our chat room that the Lakers bench seems to be one of their weakest points, and I'm curious to know if either one of you, even if we have an opinion on that, if we know much about the Lakers bench. If not, like I said, I'm loading up their roster right now, so I'll be able to read it out to you, but I'm just curious to know if we have an opinion on that off the top of our heads, or...
Well, listen, I think a lot of it, and I know we've talked about the weakness of the Lakers bench before. I think just a lot of it is those guys are still trying to find their roles. Jameson, we already talked about, hasn't really been too heavily involved. Jody Meeks is a three-point specialist, but, he's another guy who needs to be involved a little bit. And you have a young guy in Jordan Hill who I think is only in his second or third year.
He's only 25.
Yeah, so he's still very raw. He's still got a lot of time to go, but he's got a lot of talent. So I think it's just a question of those guys finding their roles.
Well, really. I mentioned this when we were talking about our Western Conference preview with Steve Blake as their backup point guard. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm sorry, but there is no justification, anybody at all, even if Mr. Bust himself came in the studio and tried to tell me why you would pay Steve Blake $4 million. This man is an average NBA point guard. Now, obviously, you're good. You're in the NBA. You don't play in the NBA unless you're good at basketball. Let's be serious. It's not like I could play point guard better than he could, even in my cool D Rose jersey. I still could. But $4 million for a guy where you can go find how many people to do the same role he does. Or you got a, what do you call it? Like Chris Duhon. Like Duhon's been in the league for a while. I know you're all right. You're not bad.
I would take Blake over
But
Duhon in the second.
Duhon's making $3.25 million. Like they're paying these bench guys salary that they don't deserve, and it's like the NBA. You know, I know they're not as strict with salary cap as the NFL, where it's like if you're over it, like you got to cut players. You can't just pay a luxury tax. But I feel like that's the one thing that I've noticed about the Lakers over the past couple of years is that they've put in so much trust and faith in the Paul Gasol, Kobe Bryant combination, and having Andrew Bynum that they really, in my opinion, didn't invest a lot into their bench. Like they just spent money on guys that they're like, oh, you can fill a spot. Like where I feel like pretty much what I'm trying to get at is I feel like they could have spent their money better compared to what they have on their bench. So I'll ask you, do we think their bench can be a bigger issue than the gelling of the superstars? Can that be a bigger issue?
In my opinion, this group they've put together of guys, if they can play on the floor 30 to 40 minutes a game, and I mean by the end of the season, I'm hoping Howard can get up if they need to play 40 minutes a game. They're you know the NBA. It's not so much what you have on your bench, it's what your stars can do in big moments. And if they get to the playoffs, I don't think anybody's betting against the Lakers.
Well,
I'd have a hard time doing it, but go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'll say this about Steve Blake. I'm not saying he's worth $4 million. I'm just saying he's going to get the chance to prove whether or not he is over the next few weeks with Nash being out. My personal opinion is if he can't cut the mustard with Nash out, I don't think he'll last mid-season. Truthfully, I think once Nash comes back, if Blake didn't do a good job, he'll be gone. But I think in this league, when you look at the way things go nowadays, as much as you have the Heat with the big three, it is about having that 8 or 9 man rotation that the coach is solid with, especially come playoff time. You know, you're not going to use all 12 or 15 guys on your roster, but you need to have 8, 9, or 10 guys. You look at what the Nets have been doing. As much as they've lost the last 2 games, that second unit is vital to what they've been doing so far this year. I'm not saying that it'll be as vital to the Lakers as it would be the Nets, but you do need a few guys you can rely on in the clutch. And I do think the issue is them gelling, not necessarily the weakness of their bench. I think the more they gel and the more everybody gets comfortable in their roles, I do think you'll start to see the Jordan Hills maybe grow into his role, Jameson start to put up 15, 20 points a game, and even someone like Jody Meeks. He's not a great player, but he was a quality rotation player with the 76ers last year. And I think as the season goes on, you'll see him find that a little bit more with the Lakers.
See, I like how you said that too. I think it's a combination of the two, but I do agree with both. I think the superstars, I mean, it is the NBA. It's that simple. LeBron James took the Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals. I mean, a superstar is pretty much your difference in a 500 team that's knocked out in the first round and a team that's 15 to 20 games over 500 that makes it to the NBA Finals. I mean, literally one guy in the NBA can make that much of a difference. Hence, which goes back, in my opinion, this is something me and Eric have talked about, and I have never had a chance to ask you, but why college basketball, in my opinion, can be so much more fun to watch. Because it's such a more team-oriented game. It's such more of a execution. Coaching plays, I don't want to say a bigger role, but you can see the role of coaching more in the college game. You know, you could see the impact of coaching in the game more than you do with the NBA, where an NBA coach is more in the practice area and the huddle, you know, drawing up plays at the end of games, compared to in college, almost every play you see on a college basketball court, you can tell the coach had something to do with it. They, you know, they don't really get in much ISO and 101. But either which way, so nobody in the Sports Zone studios panicking over the Lakers. We all seem to agree that the Stars need to gel. Their bench is pretty terrible, but all in all, if the Stars gel, this team should be A-OK.